Welcome back, everybody, to another Survivor video. Getting this one out earlier in the week, giving you guys lots of time in preparation for your respective leagues. As always, don't forget to like the video. If you're enjoying this content throughout 10 weeks, subscribe to the channel to keep getting this information, and hit up the comment section to let me know what you think or if you got any questions as well. All right, looking at the slate for week 10, you got a large variability in spreads this week. A lot of home teams that are favored by more than a field goal, but then after the Seahawks there, you can see it drops off dramatically. Like I predicted, I think last week was a bit of a shakeup in Survivor. I think this week will be a little more kind to a lot of people. And as always, we like checking the schedule preview, seeing where these teams might be picked up later in the Survivor season. You know, it is getting late early here in week 10, but never too prudent to look at the schedule for future games. First couple games I wanted to talk about that I'm a little bit nervous about. I could see you taking these teams, but you definitely think long and hard about taking them. First one of those teams are the Saints at the Vikings. Saints minus 2.5 here, implying they'd be favored by more than a field goal if they were at home or even a neutral site here. I do like the Saints and how they've been playing on offense, but I was a little bit concerned with the defense against the Bears and letting rookie undrafted Division II quarterback Tyler Bagent kind of tear him up a little bit, especially with his legs and even with his arm. Only the saving grace for the Saints was that Bagent committed 4 turnovers himself, and that was really what allowed the Saints to win that game by 1 possession. The Vikings they were on the road against the Falcons, pulled out a crazy win with what is now their 3rd string quarterback this year after Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, and then Jaron Hall went out in the first quarter with a concussion. Quarterback Josh Dobbs, they traded for on Tuesday, really stepped up for him and gave him a win. You know, I'm not so much of a believer in Josh Dobbs, but he has been playing well. I think he's got a lot of time. Needs a little bit more time for the Vikings to really understand that playbook and step in as a true starter. But his legs and being a dual threat quarterback certainly help. I do like the Saints here to win, but it is concerning to me that they're on the road here, and given how poor the defense has played, it is definitely cause for concern. I think it's time for the Saints defense to get back on track and, you know, stymie a Vikings offense that I think is very much incomplete with Josh Dobbs and his inexperience within the system. But nevertheless, it is something to think twice about and be a little bit cautious about. The other game, which, you know, looking back a few weeks ago, this would be crazy to say that you're proceeding with caution with the 49ers, but that's exactly what I'm saying here. They're coming off a bye on the road and off 2 straight losses, facing the Jaguars in Jacksonville, who are also coming off a bye. The Niners, the big question really with this team is what kind of quarterback is Brock Purdy, and how is he going to handle adversity in the situations where the Niners find themselves down in the football game? Doesn't happen often, and it certainly didn't early on in the season, and that's when he shined. But when the pressure mounted a little bit, he crumbled and folded in the last 2 games, and that's why the Niners are on a 2-game skid. Now, I will give Purdy a little bit of slack here, as I think they rushed him back after a week with being out with concussion. I think after this bye week and getting 2 weeks off, he should be perfectly healthy and ready to go. I think it's time for the Niners to get back on track and get a win here. But this is a pretty scary Jaguars football team, certainly a playoff team if they somehow don't win this AFC South that they are now running away with. I really like the Jaguars and how balanced they are on offense with a run game with Travis Etienne, and the pass game, getting guys like Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk involved. And that defense is pretty solid too with Josh Allen. Their defense has been leading the way there and looking really, really good this year. Again, I think the Niners should win this game and come back. But on the road, only favored by 3 points against a playoff team, probably best is to stay away from the Niners here. The best pick for this week, as I'm sure just about all of you have already surmised, it is the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Giants at home. Giants seem to be able to do nothing offensively. Doesn't help that Daniel Jones, who was back last week, is out again. You get Tommy DeVito leading the way for the Giants. That's simply just not going to cut it against this Cowboys defense that has looked really, really good against inferior teams, especially teams like the Giants that have an inferior offensive line. Going to have a really tough time blocking guys like Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and the rest of that bunch for the Cowboys. I expect the Cowboys to roll against the Giants and win and even cover this 15.5-point spread. I think their defense might even outscore. I would not be surprised, and I almost think it's likely that the Cowboys defense outscores the Giants offense here. This is certainly a great spot to take the Cowboys this week, even against a divisional opponent. I know it says no for the divisional game. It's a divisional game. But hear it in the comment section. Best value here. A couple of really good value plays this week. I like the Seahawks for best value in terms of not going to take this team again for the rest of the season. While the Seahawks are a playoff team, in my opinion, I do believe they will be the NFC, one of the NFC wild cards. I think this is a great spot for them in terms of, favored by 6 points, almost a touchdown here at home, coming off a loss. All good things in terms of bounce back game against the Commanders team. That is their second straight road game, traveling across the country from New England. It certainly takes a toll on these guys, time change and the like. But it's also a product of the Seahawks having a very tough schedule throughout the rest of the season. Let's take a look here. If you hone in the bottom here, they got a really tough schedule. Clearly a tough division when they're playing the Niners twice in the back half of the year. On the road against the Rams, I hate picking teams against divisional opponents on the road. It's already haunted and coming to bite people like myself earlier this season. Like to stay away in general. Dallas on the road is not an easy pick. Philly, who's only have one loss this year, is not an easy game. Even on the road against Tennessee, that's always a trap spot in my opinion. I could see you making the case for Pittsburgh at home, but the way Pittsburgh is playing right now, Seahawks certainly won't be favored by more than 6 points against that game, as Pittsburgh is a playoff team right now. And then again, another divisional road game against the Cardinals. So I really like the spot for the Seahawks. I don't think you're going to get a better situation than you are this week for the Seahawks, and that's why they're such good value. This is like I said in the last video, Seahawks top 10 offense and top 10 defense. I know they got really shut down by this Ravens defense, but that is a top 1 unit in the league in terms of points per game, and I'm not too surprised by that outcome. I would expect the Commanders to be slowed down by the Seahawks defense, and the Seahawks bounce back here and get a win. Great value here. And a game that I like more in general, but just slightly less value, is this next one, and that's the Buffalo Bills at the Broncos. Great value in this one. It's definitely a safer game than the Seahawks, just not as good as value. But the Bills here are 5-4 now, I want to say, and they are in a tough AFC conference with how good every single team in that AFC North is playing. Wildcard spots are going to be at a premium in the AFC, and the Bills can't afford to lose too many more games, especially when they're favored by 7.5 points here. This is a primetime Monday Night Football game at home in Buffalo. This is a game, a must-win game for the Bills that they will against an inferior Broncos team. They're not a 500 ball club, regardless of how they've looked this year. I know they're better than that. And also, I know that any primetime game in Buffalo gets pretty crazy, and the Bills show out for their fans, especially in primetime at home. I really like the Bills in a great spot here to bounce back as well against the Broncos, whose defense has not looked great all year, with the exception of that one Chiefs game. Certainly have not lived up to expectations, and their offense, as it has the last 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons, has really been a laggard for this team. I like the Bills here in a great spot, where another great value when you look at what they have for the rest of the season. Honing in the Bills here, you probably could take him next week against the Jets. I don't like taking teams against divisional opponents. Then you got a couple on the road games against Super Bowl teams, at home against a playoff team in Dallas, and on the road against the Chargers across the country. Could probably take them at home against New England, but that's week 17. Again, it's New England. It's a divisional game. I'd like to stay away from it. I think the Bills here are great value, and I really do think they're in a great spot to win. I would take the Bills this week if you still have them. Otherwise, unless you have the Cowboys, of course. And we talked about best value, talked about even great value for the Bills. I think there's some good value to be found on this board, and that is with the Chicago Bears, -3.5 here. It's not often I see this Bears team favored by more than just 3 points, implying that they're going to win this game by more than a field goal. But because they are, I'm kind of buying into it. They're coming off a tough loss against the Saints, but I'm just impressed with the way their offense looked. Simply put, if they don't turn the ball over 5 times that game, they're going to win that game. And they're playing a Saints team, as I mentioned, that is really strong defensively, and it's really starting to click offensively too. So even with the loss, my takeaway was that the Bears are playing well, and Tyson Bagent has been looking better at quarterback. Hopefully, Justin Fields is back this game, but even if he wasn't, I'm still relatively confident in Benjamin to come out here and win a game at home on Thursday night on a short week. But as a Bears supporter, I can't even call myself a fan anymore with the way they've looked. Bears fan here, I would hope that Justin Fields is back this game. But the Panthers have looked terrible lately. I called that Colts game being a blowout. A couple pick sixes from Bryce Young. Still has not figured it out quite yet at quarterback. Run game kind of non-existent for the Panthers. And on the flip side of the football, their run defense is nearly as non-existent as their run offense is. Bears team here at home in prime time. Every now and then they show up. They certainly do more so in primetime games like they did against the Commanders. I think they do it again here and beat the Panthers here at home. You look at the schedule for the Bears. I mean, not surprising. I'm not really circling any games for them in Survivor as they are so bad. Even this game at home against the Cardinals, I can't highlight for them to even take. Kyler Murray could be back at that point, and in that situation, I don't think the Bears outplay them. This is just a bad Bears team that is playing one of the few teams in this league that is worse than them. And I think if you're really going crazy this week, then you can take the Bears for some value, but certainly much better value, a much safer value on this board. Just talk quickly about the other games. Texans and Bengals. Bengals are on a roll right now. They're looking like their true self right now and a real contender in this AFC. I think they're going to win this game and playing a Texans team that is really good offensively but lacks defensively, which is clear when you're letting up 37 points against the Buccaneers, who were just held to 13 points by the Falcons, who I don't think are that great either. So I like the Bengals here, but you're going to get better spots. There's certainly better spots this week. And, it's not the worst pick. I just don't love it, given the situations of the rest of the board here. Same kind of thing with the Ravens here. They're -6. In a really low-scoring total game. I think it's like 37 between the Browns and Ravens with two really good defenses and sort of one-dimensional offenses. Both teams like to run the ball religiously and aren't built that much on the pass game. I would pass on this one just because the Browns defense is so good, always capable of disrupting it and even putting points up on the board. This is something, especially a divisional opponent with the Ravens on top of the world right now, I'd stay away from just because they're due to fall back to reality at some point, you would think. And then going to one last AFC North team. All these teams playoff on right now. Steelers at home versus the Packers, -3. The Packers, while they won last game, still didn't look that great, and they really have looked awful all season, especially outside of that Bears game. But Jordan Love is really not stepped up to my expectations, nor most people's expectations of him. I think he's going to have a hard time going to the big ketchup bottle in Pittsburgh. Facing the Steelers defense has a great pass rush, especially with T.J. Watt. And Steelers right now, they don't make it pretty. It's ugly most games, but if they find a way to win, especially at home, I like the Steelers here to win because the Packers have been so bad. But be very careful with this game too, because the Steelers are one of the few teams in this league that are being out yardaged every single game. They are a bend don't break team and rely on their defense to force punts even after the other opponent is able to string together first downs, but they are opportune with their chances and they know how to win games. Nevertheless, scary spot here, but still think they should win this one. For a quick recap here, if you have the Cowboys this week, you should not even be thinking twice. Close the video right now, you're taking them, okay? Don't consider anything else. You're not taking them ever again this season until maybe the end. You're definitely not going to see them as 15.5-point favorites and a 90% chance to win. It's not happening. You're not seeing that with most of the teams the rest of the year. You have to take the Cowboys here, okay? Let's put that to bed. If you have the Bills, I think they're a great value here, and I think they're very much due for a win here. But if you don't have them, I think the Seahawks are a great value as well. Bears with some pretty deep value, but with that comes risk, as they're a 2-win football team. There's a ton of risk there. I definitely would stay away from the Niners and Saints on the road. Scary, even though the Niners are set for a bounce-back game. They're playing a very good Jaguars team that seems to get better each week. And the Saints here, that defense is lagged as they were elite the first few games of the season. Now they're slowly starting to decline. They could bounce back this game, but don't count on it and stay away from that one as well. Some other good picks here too, but really I think it's between the Cowboys and the Bills if you have them. If not, go for some value Seattle. I think the Bengals are the next safest play outside of that. But overall, some good picks this week, certainly easier than last week. And as always, good luck in Week 10. I think if you have the Cowboys, you got a great chance of moving on next week. If not, I think there's a lot of great picks as well on the board. And I can't wait to hear from you guys in the comment section. And see you back again in Week 11.